Now, Russia's Foreign Minister Lavrov opens a new can of worm, man, when he claimed that Hitler was a Jew. You may not have heard this before, but it is something well known throughout history. However, for the powers that be, this is the wrong narrative that should be discouraged by all means necessary. Coming from anyone else, this wouldn't even make the back page of a local newspaper. But Lavrov is one of the most important and influential men today. Therefore, the opponents of these arguments must urgently push back and attack this truth. Now let me brief you on the context in which he made these claims. Firstly, I must tell you that the powers that be has said that if you tell the truth or go against their narrative, they would censor you. Hopefully some of you Negroes has taken a few moments off from your Big Mac, Pepsi, fries, and mumble rap to realize this is a war going on here. This is what is compounding the high price of oil and inflation. Some of you need to get to know what's going on in your neck of the neighborhoods. Now, the two main antagonists in this war, I will discreetly refer to them as Rossi and Yuki. May God help you Negroes that still don't get it. By the way, I must say this in passing. Despite the lies the West are telling you, the Russians are winning this war hands down. No matter how much, fake news and harms they ship to UK, it's not gonna change the outcome of the, eventual outcome actually. It will be just a matter of time before Rusky split UK in two and take the eastern half. So, when Rusky carried out their military operation against UK, one of their stated goals was to denazify UK. Basically, they want to get rid of UK. Well, they want to rid UK of, their festering Nazi ideology that was going on among them, especially in the armed force, which was used to, oppress the Rusky-speaking population. The crux of the matter is that although it is a well-known fact that the UK army is infested with Nazi, the West, including America, trains them and supplies them with weaponry. The president of UK, who is a Jew, is a stalwart of support for their army. Many people have started to think that the president of UK himself is a Nazi. But the apologists countered that he could not be a Nazi because he is Jewish. All of these people are just hypocrites, disregarding history and reality. But let us listen to Lavrov himself. Here is it in his own words.
Why would Russia need to denazify Ukraine, especially when its president is Jewish? Lavrov's response triggered a controversy. Listen in to what he said.
Мы не требуем, чтобы Зеленский сдавался. Мы требуем, чтобы он
The Ukrainian president puts forward an argument. What kind of Nazification can we have if I am Jew? If I remember right, I may be wrong, but Hitler also had Jewish origins. So it doesn't mean absolutely anything. For some time we have heard from the wise Jewish people that the biggest anti-Semites were Jewish.
Людей на востоке Украины.
The Russian foreign minister suggests that Hitler had Jewish origins. The same Hitler who ordered the killing of millions of Jews. Obviously, Israel was furious. It called the statement unforgivable and scandalous. Tel Aviv even summoned the Russian ambassador for some quote-unquote tough talks.
It is an unforgivable, scandalous statement, as you said, and also, of course, a terrible historical mistake, and we expect an apology.
But the diplomatic dispute did not end there. Russia's foreign ministry doubled down on Sergei Lavrov's words, accusing the Israeli foreign minister of making quote-unquote anti-historical remarks. Moscow has now accused Israel of supporting neo-Nazis in Ukraine. It even said that Israeli mercenaries were fighting in the war in Ukraine.
Now, today, I'm not going to get into a deep discussion of how people know that Hitler was, he had Jewish heritage. That has been widely written about, even while he was alive. But Mr. Lavrov would not have made that claim if there was not something to it. But let us move on to lesser-known Jews who collaborated with the Nazis. You might have heard the term Nazi collaborator before. This primary references Jews. You have to be a Jew to collaborate with the Nazis. The fact is that the Nazi army in Germany had many Jews. A few may have been conscript, but the majority were enlisted men. There were many battalions that had Jewish generals. All this was reality even while the Holocaust was happening. This must have been quite an embarrassment for Judaism, but it has been documented by numerous authors during the time of Hitler to the decades following World War II. This is kind of like a wide open secret, man. I have put several links in the description which will show that there has been many Jews in bed with the Nazis during the Holocaust. Today, the Jewish country called Israel provides training and equipment for the Azov Nazi soldiers in the UK army. Now maybe you can't read this, but it's showing one of those Azov Nazi thugs. So let me read what it says under there. A group of more than 40 human rights activists have filed a petition with the High Court of Justice demanding the cessation of Israeli arms export to Ukraine. Okay, I forgot to say UK. Hope they missed that one. They argued that those weapons serve forces that openly expose a neo-Nazi ideology and cite evidence that the right-wing Azov militia, whose members are part of Ukraine's armed force and are supported by the country's Ministry of Internal Affairs, is using these weapons. That's the weapon that the Azov guys proudly displaying. They come from the Jewish country. An early appeal to the Defense Ministry was met with no response. The ministry's consideration in granting export license for ornaments are not disclosed to the public, but it appears that the appearance of Israeli weapons in the hands of avowed neo-Nazis should be a consideration used in opposing the granting of such a license. So here you have a whole nation of Jews supporting Nazi. You saw that? Yeah, and they try to tell you that You know, it's a joke. Anyway, let's go down to the individual level because there's we're going to go up the way to Zelensky himself, the leader of UK. This guy, Igor Kolomo, let me not butcher this, Kolomoisky. He's a Jew, obviously. And so let me give you a little video I'll explain before I tell you, because let somebody else who know more about it tell you about it.
That, Ihor Kolomoisky, who's this Ukrainian, Israeli Cypriot oligarch, a very, very rich man. He was the one who financed the Azov Battalion, okay, who back in 2013. And the Azov Battalion, they're neo-Nazis, anti-Semites, you'd figure. And this guy's Jewish, obviously, but he financed them, for real. He also was the one who owned 1+1 Media Company, the largest media company in Ukraine, that produced the show, Servant of the People, that gave Zelensky his springboard to fame. Well, he was famous already, but, it created the springboard for his political career. Okay, Ihor Kolomoisky, he looks like like a little Santa Claus with glasses, right? There's another picture of him. You go to Google him, and there's like a picture of he's looking straight at the camera. He looks like a happy little Santa Claus, right? He is a nasty, nasty piece of work. Now here's the crazy part, and this is true. This is not me saying this, man. You can Google it yourself. It turns out that Ihor Kolomoisky, not only is he the guy who, financed and created Zelensky as a political figure, which he did, Kolomoisky also owns a big chunk of Burisma, the gas company. The gas company that gave Hunter Biden the no-show job at $83,000 a month, $1 million a year, that no-show job on Burisma's, board of directors, okay? And you say, no, this can't be true, man. This is like conspiracy theory craziness. I'm telling you, it is. Look it up. This is publicly available information, okay? The whole thing just reeks to high heaven, This is just like, holy cow. The corruption going on all around is unbelievable. And people don't believe it, but it is. It's like that, It's like a cesspool. And, when Putin says that he wants to demilitarize and denazify, and everybody's like, oh, this denazification stuff, it's baloney. No, it's for real. And it's so insane that this Jewish businessman is the one who financed these neo-Nazis. It's just like, what? What the hell is going on?
So what about the big guy Zelensky himself? Now he goes out of his way, man, to show that he's a Nazi, man, and he don't care. Remember, he say he's Jewish, but he addressed the Greek Parliament, and mark you, he doesn't have to do this, but he does it anyway. He brings on an Azov neo-Nazi that is based in Greece. See? Shows him up. He didn't even have to do it, so why the hell did he do it? Why doesn't he just hide the fact? But he does it anyway. So here again, he goes out of his way. Mark, this guy doesn't have to do this. He could just do this this video thing that he keeps on doing, that they let him do, the West let him do each day, here's the caption. It shows some guy wearing it shows his soldiers, right, his Nazi soldiers. It says, nothing unusual, just the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, publishes a selection of photographs on Victory Day over fascism, the first of which shows a Ukrainian Nazi with the chevron of the 3rd SS Panzer Division. That's Hitler SS Nazi division, I guess, where they do their they kill people and stuff. Okay, so come at me again. You can't be a Nazi because you're a Jew? Nah, that's a joke. You see, the USA, Canada, and their Western allies now appoint themselves as apologists for this evil man, and that is no coincidence, man. They are the ones who brought millions of you Negroes into slavery in the Americas, along with a brutal colonization of your brothers and sisters back in Africa. Therefore, this is the context in which the Russian President Lavrov answered the apologists that say the UK president cannot be, a Nazi because he's Jewish. This is just a smoke screen, man. They put up when they put this up when they are, criticized for supporting him. So in all of this, there's a big lesson for you Negroes. You should not be supporting Nazism or neo-Nazism because it is the same thing as supporting the far right, skinheads, and KKK organizations in America. They are the same. Their stated goal is to annihilate you from the face of the earth. Fortunately for you, though, your destiny is in the hand of the God of Israel. And it's going to be the opposite. They ain't going to be annihilating you.
Take full responsibility for what I say. I witnessed war crimes in Ukraine. All of them were committed by the Ukrainian army, not the Russian army. This does not mean that there haven't been any war crimes by the Russian side, but we don't talk about Ukrainian war crimes in France. When I returned to France from Ukraine, I was shocked. TV channels are inviting people indiscriminately as experts, 80% of whom haven't been in the war in Ukraine and don't know anything about what is happening there right now. I find it disgusting that they're the ones talking about the war. Azov fighters were everywhere, displaying Nazi symbols. It shocks me that Europe supplies weapons to the military, as in my opinion they are neo-Nazis. The symbols of neo-Nazis are embroidered everywhere on their uniforms. No one talks about it, but it's easy to see. This is the former symbolism of the SS, and you can find it everywhere in Ukraine. But for some reason, no one cares about it. I worked with these people and gave them medicine. Do you know what they talked about in front of me? They laughed, saying that if they see Jews or black people, they would skin them.
There was a shooting in Buffalo, a mass shooting in a small supermarket, where 13 people were shot and 10 people are dead. The culprit was a young boy, just 18 years old, who supposedly put out a manifesto all over the internet detailing how he was trying to curb this quote-unquote white replacement theory. Now, there are a lot of overflowing emotions, a lot of perspectives that should be heard here, but I think one of the most important ones, of course, is white supremacy is still alive and well in the United States. There is also some angles about this that I think should be at least discussed, because obviously I'm a black man. So Nazism, neo-Nazism, and all forms of white supremacy, I feel the need to challenge for some odd reason. Now, myself and many others have been talking about the neo-Nazism that's been taking place in Ukraine. In fact, some people have been alleging online that this guy was, at least in some part, inspired by a lot of the symbolism and imagery used in the neo-Nazism in Ukraine.
NATO is arming and training neo-Nazis in Ukraine's white supremacist Azov movement, who use the same fascist symbols as the terrorist mass shooter in Buffalo, New York.
Weird to see a lot of people praising neo-Nazis from Azov for 3 months 24/7 on here suddenly being outraged with another local neo-Nazi from Buffalo. They will go back to cheerleading for Azov tomorrow and tell how they aren't actual Nazis, and it's a difficult issue.
After the Buffalo shooting, I see liberals are back to declaring Nazis bad. Should be interesting how they explain how the sun in red black sun is a Nazi emblem on an American terrorist but patriotism when worn by Ukrainian Azov soldiers.
Now, this 18-year-old shooter was allegedly inspired by Nazi symbols that are used by the same Azov battalion that are linked to the Ukrainian government, the same Ukrainian government that is claiming to have no affiliation with Nazism or neo-Nazism. But when people like myself and others, when we brought this up, we were met with jeers by the liberal establishment and even by much of the Republican establishment. We were called Putin puppets. We were called, Russian puppets, whatever you want to call it. That's what we were called. So it's been very, very interesting to me to see this mass shooting, an act of white supremacy, an act of what liberals would call neo-Nazism, being condemned, rightfully so, while we have members of the squad, members of Congress who would probably label themselves social justice warriors, sending tens of billions of dollars to neo-Nazis in the Ukraine. Neo-Nazis who wear Nazi insignias proud.
Now the world may have you believe that these people are winning the war, but the reality on the ground is quite different. People like these were offered a chance to surrender or die. These creeps chose to surrender. So off to the prisoner of war camp they go. Well, so much for the idea that Zelensky, being a Jew, would exempt him from having Nazi sympathies or being a Nazi. We learned that it is common for people of Jewish heritage to be Nazis or have Nazi sympathies. Over the decades, there has been much discussion of their origins, even though today one would assume they are the biblical descendants of the people of Israel, and that is because they claim to be. But from a DNA standpoint, they are chiefly of the E1B1B, that's the E/M35 haplogroup. This is true of the Ashkenazi type of Jews, which make up the largest proportion of Jews today. So after Lavrov, the Russian minister, made these remarks about Hitler being a Jew, then there was a flurry of responses, obviously. But I want you to take this one for example.
To this war of words that we are seeing playing out between Israel and Russia, do you see this diplomatic friction intensifying in the days to come?
Before I answer your question, please allow me to say why Jews are very sensitive to what Mr. Lavrov said. Mr. Lavrov said that condemnation of his comments is anti-historical. His comment in the first place was wrong, and it was a conspiracy theory. The root of this conspiracy theory is this. Hitler's father was born out of wedlock. In his birth certificate, the name of Hitler's grandfather was blank.
Well, of course, this is a sensitive issue for Jews. Hitler burned 6 million people. So, of course, nobody wants to know that he's a Jew. Okay, but first he starts talking about conspiracy theory. Then he says something about Hitler's grandfather and his birth certificate says he's black. But sounds to me like he's talking out of his you-know-what, because it's not making any sense talking about birth certificate here, because Hitler father name was Hitler. Therefore, we would expect his grandfather to be named Hitler also. But that there's no question about his name being black, though. So that's a waste of time. What he's really trying to say, and he's saying it's a conspiracy theory, is that Hitler's grandfather was a black man. I want you to settle that in your brains for a little while, and I'm going to show you that it's not far-fetched as they would like you to believe. Now, I want to bring your attention to a video I created last year. The Bible shows, it's entitled, "The Bible shows Moab and Ammon and Elam are not Chinese or Japanese, but Negro-Negroid-Black-Semitic people." The link is in the description, but I've put a link to the relevant section also in the description. So if you don't have the time to watch the entire video, you can just go to the timeline. Note that at the time of creation of this video was December the 15th, 2021. Now, Lavrov made his comment about Hitler on May the 2nd, 2022. That's this year, earlier this month. Therefore, I couldn't have copied from him. I am positive he didn't copy this from me either. This is common knowledge from decades ago. Maybe the reason why it is not commonplace is because the Jewish community has suppressed it, just like they are doing now when Lavrov mentions it. Now, biologically, Jews are Semitic people also, and have a relationship with the patriarch Abraham as Israel does. That is a completely different story for another time. The fact is, modern Jewish origin started with Jacob's twin brother Esau, the same Esau and Jacob of the Bible. Both were Negroid origin as Israel still is today. Same as many of Esau remain Negroid and live in East and North Africa and all over the world where they have migrated. So why does one group become white? As the video shows, these groups of E1B1B haplogroup men, Negroid, by design procreated exclusively with white, mainly Slavic women in Europe hundreds of years ago. They carried on the tradition of being a Jew can only be affected by coming out of one of these so-called Jewish women. That way they are whited out, but still has the male DNA haplogroup E1B1B. So, the point is, this is not some secret. If only you people would read, you would see for yourself that it is so. A man like Lavrov is an intelligent and important man. He wouldn't come up and say something like that if there's no truth to it. You know, it just wouldn't come out of his mouth. Anyway, I'm asking you all to subscribe, especially subscribe, and comment if you can, if you want. I would appreciate it. Thank you.